No, I can't take her with me, the woman said almost immediately, shaking her head. A tense silence followed before another man spoke, his voice edged with impatience. Then what should we do? The woman let out a sharp breath. If you want, you can take her. You already have children. You can take responsibility of her. Why me? The man snapped, turning towards her in disbelief. Are you serious? Do you have any idea how much responsibility it takes to raise someone? Her college fees, her daily necessities, everything. I can't afford any of that. His word came out harsh, almost cruel. The woman looked at him for a moment, then immediately looked away. I don't know anything, she muttered. I'm leaving. Then I should leave too, the man said flatly. Neither of them noticed the girl sitting on the cold hospital floor nearby. She was curled into herself, knees pulled to her chest, her head resting on them. Every single word reached her ears, none of them mattered to her. Her mind was completely blank. Her parents, her mom, dad, they had been just in it, and now they had left her alone in this world. The people she once called family stood nearby, arguing over responsibilities. Yet none of them could claim her. No one wanted her. She was only 19 years old, college student, a girl with full of dreams, a future, a life ahead of her. She didn't live in luxury. She came from a middle class family, but she had been happy. She had her parents. She had nowhere to go except her house that was already on the verge of being sold. The landlord wouldn't let her stay alone there. Now she became alone, no one to turn to. Even her relatives, her so-called family, had right here in the hospital corridor. Tears streamed down her face as she cried uncontrollably. Mom, Dad, please come back, please. Her hands clenched her clothes. Why did you leave me? Please don't go. That was when a hurried footstep echoed through the corridor. A middle-aged man came running into the hospital, his breath uneven. The moment his eyes landed on a small, trembling figure on the cold floor, his feet froze. Her head was buried between her knees. Slowly, cautiously, he walked towards her. "Wine," he called out softly. Wine looked up. Her eyes were red, swollen, completely lost. She didn't even seem aware of her surroundings anymore. Mr. June's chest tightened. Without another word, he rushed towards the nurse station. "Jehun," he said urgently. "There is a couple, Jehun and Mina, who met and—" The nurse's expression fell instantly. She slowly shook her head. "I'm sorry." The words. Mr. Jones froze where he stood. His knees nearly gave out as reality crashed over him all at once. Then he slowly walked towards Wine, who was still crying on the hospital floor. The moment he reached her, he didn't hesitate. He bent down and pulled her into his arms. Wine completely broke down. Her sob grew louder as she clutched into his coat, her finger trembling. Mr. Jeon held her tightly, his hand resting on her back of the head, gently caressing her head against his chest. Mr. Jeon was a very close friend of Wan's father. They had been high school friends, bonded by years of trust, laughter, and unbreakable loyalty. After a while, he pulled back just enough to look at her face. His eyes were heavy with grief as he asked softly, "Wan, where are the others, your relatives who will take you home?" Wan looked up at him, her eyes innocent and swollen with tears. She swallowed hard before whispering, They they left." Mr. Jones' breath caught. "They left?" he repeated, disbelief shaking his voice. "What do you mean they left without you?" She nodded slowly. They said they can't take me with them, she mumbled, her voice so small it made his chest ache. Fresh tears spilled down her cheek as she lowered her gaze, unable to say anything more. Mr. John felt his heart race painfully, his mind spun thought after another. He didn't know what to do, but one thing was clear. He could not leave her alone like this. He couldn't just walk away. At the same time, he also knew he couldn't take the responsibility for Wyan. He couldn't take her to his home. It wasn't a proper place for her to live there. Mr. Jones shared a deep bond with Wyan's father and he wanted Wyan to be safe always. He wanted someone who would truly take responsibility for her, who would protect her and care for her, because her so-called relatives, her so-called family would never do that. The office was almost silent. An uneasiness stillness filled the air. At the center of the room sat Jungkook, a 27 years old man behind his desk. He was sharp, handsome and carried a mature presence. His mind was sharp, able to notice every detail, every flaw. He tolerated no mistakes and everyone in the company knew that well. He was the most fierce CEO of June Enterprise. Suddenly, a knock against the door. Without looking up, the files in front of him, Jungkook spoke in a deep voice. Come in. The door opened. His secretary stepped inside. Sir, she said carefully, her voice low. Your father, Mr. June, has come to meet you. Jungkook's hand paused mid-motion. Then he slowly lifted his head. His eyes were dark, cold, unreadable. I'm busy right now, he said flatly. Tell him to wait. The secretary hesitated for a moment. She remained standing there, clearly nervous, unsure if she should say anything more. Jungkook glanced up again, his gaze sharp. That was enough. Yes, sir, she said immediately, nodding her head before quickly leaving the office. It had been almost an hour and a half when suddenly the door opened. Jungkook looked up, his brow frowned, ready to speak, but then he noticed Mr. Jones standing there. He glanced behind, his secretary also there, his face pale. Sir, I tried to tell him that you were busy, but she stammered, unable to finish the sentence. Jungkook sighed, rising to his feet, and gestured her to leave. She bowed quickly and exited. He straightened, hands in his pocket, and approached his father standing across from him. What? He asked coldly. Mr. John let out a deep sigh. Actually, I need your help. Jungkook frowned. With what? Mr. John hesitated, swallowing nervously as he struggled for words. There is a girl. I want you to marry her. Jungkook froze, disbelief flashing across his face. A laugh escaped him, sharp and what? Listen, I'm not interested in your nonsense. Leave, he said, turning away. Jungkook, please. Mr. John urged, stopping him. It's my request. Jungkook spun around, eyes blazing. Are you out of your mind? Do you understand what you are saying? And how could you possibly think I would do what you say? Why wouldn't you? Mr. John asked quietly. I'm your father. Jungkook laughed bitterly. Father, now you remember. After cheating on my mother and leaving us, now you show up, making requests and calling yourself my father. I'm not interested. Mr. Jones' gaze softened. I know I made mistakes, Jungkook, but please, just hear me out. That girl, she just lost her parents and her family. Other family refuse her to take responsibility. I cannot leave her alone. Her father, he was a very good friend of mine. Try to understand. Jungkook's voice darkened. Then take responsibility yourself. I don't care. Mr. Jones clenched his jaw. Just as Jungkook turned back towards his desk, he spoke sharply. You still know that 40% of this company is still under my name. Jungkook stopped, turning to face him, eyes narrowing. If you don't do as I say, Mr. Jones continued, his tone icy, I'll transfer my share to my other son, Karo. Then he will also become involved in this company. Jungkook's jaw clenched, his eyes darkening. You won't dare. This company is mine now. It was my mother's. She built it, not you. I took it this so far. You have nothing to do with it. My mother, she just that time to write it in your name. So don't even think about it. Mr. Jones' gaze hardened. If you don't listen, then I'll do it. I have no other option left. I cannot leave that girl alone in this world. I'm sorry. With that, he turned and left, leaving Jungkook frozen in place, hands clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. The room was silent, the weight of his father's words pressing down on him like a storm he couldn't control. The wedding happened in the blink of an eye. Mr. June had made sure everything went smoothly. He had arranged everything as quickly as possible and even insisted Jungkook to always stay by your side, to take care of you and never leave you alone. Because he knew your situation. You had just lost your parents, and being left alone now would not have been good. After the wedding, they both entered the house. One followed behind Jungkook. He didn't say a single word the entire time, and from the expression on his face, one could tell he wasn't happy. He didn't seem happy in this marriage at all. Standing across from him during the ceremony, he had glimpsed the coldness in his eyes, and it was clear that he hated her in that moment. But she couldn't say anything. How could she, when it wasn't his fault? Without a word, Jungkook continued to his room, leaving Wine standing alone in the vast hallway. She didn't know where to go. The mansion was so large that her twilight-filled eyes wandered, unsure whether follow him or stay put. But she didn't have the courage to go after him. After Jungkook disappeared into his room, a middle-aged woman approached her, placing a gently hand on her shoulder. One flinched, her white toy-like eyes meeting the woman's gaze. Azuma smiled warmly, a calm, reassuring presence. You must be tired, dear. Go take a rest. Sir has already prepared a room for you. One stay quiet, her thought tight. Sir, she mumbled softly. Azuma nodded. Yes, Mr. Jeon. One hesitated for a moment, then asked, Where is it? She asked softly. Upstairs, the end of the left side. Azuma replied. Slowly Wine nodded her head, made her way to her bedroom. As soon as Jungkook entered the bedroom, he threw his coat onto the floor. His jaw clenched tightly. Without another thought, he dropped onto the couch, leaning his head back, his eyes closed. His mind was completely messed. Everything felt tangled, heavy, suffocating. He hated him, hated that man. Because of him, he had lost his mother. When Jungkook was just 15, his father had cheated on his mother behind her back. His mother loved that man blindly, unconsciously. Every single day he watched his mother broke down, how much she completely lost herself because of that man, until one day she left him forever. And for that he never forgave him, not once, not ever. Even when his father finally realized his mistake, realized that the woman he chose was never right for him. What's the point of then? The damage has already been done. This mistake had already cost his mother's life, and for that he would never ever forgive him. And even now, because of that man, he had been forced into this marriage against his will. At first, he thought he was marrying a normal girl, but when he found out the girl he had just married was only 19, a college student, shock had struck him hard. His hatred for his father only grew deeper. He took a deep breath and let out a bitter sigh. Staring at the ceiling, he whispered coldly to himself. Closing his eyes once more, he tried to breathe through. On the other side of the house, after entering her room, one collapsed onto the floor, burying her face onto her knees. Everything had changed so suddenly that she didn't even know how to react. Her mind was spinning, unable to process how her life had turned upside down in the blink of an eye. Just days ago she had been happy, alive with her family, and now she had no one. She had lost her parents, and before she could even properly, she had been married off to a man she didn't even know. It wasn't like she had any expectation from this marriage. Tears streamed down her face as she slowly looked around the unfamiliar room. Everything felt strange, distant, cold. There was no warmth here, only emptiness. Her chest tightened painfully as she thought her parents, her mom, dad, the only people who had been made her feel safe, who made her world feel like home. Mom, Dad, please come back, please. I can't live without you. I miss you so much. Why did you leave me alone? Her voice broke as she cried harder. I don't know anyone here. No one loves me. Please come back. One came downstairs slowly. Her face was pale, her eyes red and swollen, clear sign that she hadn't slept at all the previous night. After getting ready for college, she made her way down, her steps quiet and hesitant. She stopped in front of Ajumma, who was neatly arranging breakfast on the dining table. As soon as Ajumma noticed her, she smiled brightly. You are awake, dear? Ajumma said warmly. Come, have breakfast. You will get late for college. One slowly shook her head. I don't feel like eating right now. I'll have something later. Azuma's smile faded into concern as she studied Wine's face. You will get sick like this, dear. Look, you look so pale. I'm fine, Wine replied quickly, shaking her head again. I'll eat something at college, I promise. With that, she turned and left. But a voice stopped her instantly. Have breakfast. One froze. She turned around to see Jungkook standing there, already dressed in his office attire. His voice was cold, firm. This was the first time he had spoken to her. Throughout the entire wedding, he hadn't said a single word to her. One immediately lowered her gaze. I really don't have any appetite right now, she said softly. Jungkook looked at her for a moment before speaking again, his voice deep and unyielding. Still, I won't let you leave without eating. Sit down and have breakfast. Azuma smiled warmly at her. Jungkook glanced at Azuma and she immediately nodded her head. I'll serve it right away, sir. Please sit. Soon Wine and Jungkook were seated across from each other at the dining table, eating in silence. The air between them felt heavy. Jungkook kept his eyes on his plate, his expression hard and unreadable. He didn't say another word, only those two earlier. From time to time one found herself stealing small glances at him. After a few moments Jungkook suddenly spoke. "When does your college end?" His voice was cold, deep. One looked up, startled. Then she replied hesitantly, "Around 5?" He nodded slightly without looking at her. He said, "I'll send the car to pick you up." "There's no need," she said almost quickly, shaking her head. "I can manage on my own." Jungkook finally looked at her, his expression. "You're my responsibility now, whether you like it or not. I won't ignore things like this. It's better if you agree to my conditions." His tone left no room for argument. One opened her mouth, but no words come out. At least he cared. For her safety, for her well-being. Not gently, not warmly, but in his own way. And somehow that realization eased her heart just a little. She slowly nodded, saying nothing more. Walking down the corridor, Sia leaned closer to Wine and asked softly, "Are you okay, Wine?" Wine looked at her. Her face was pale and blank. Yet she still nodded and replied, "I'm fine." Their class had just ended, and they were heading out together. Sia couldn't help but notice how quiet Wine had become. She wasn't like this before. Wine used to be cheerful, bright, always smiling. Seeing her this silent now only made Sia more worried. "I know it's hard for you," Sia said gently, "but it's okay, everything will be fine." After a brief pause, she added, "By the way, where are you staying now? Yesterday I came to meet you, but they said you don't live there anymore." One stopped for a moment. She didn't know what to say. She didn't want to tell Sia about her marriage. Not now. It wasn't the right time. Without looking at her, she answered, hesitantly, "I was living with my uncle and aunt for now." Sia nodded, sensing the hesitation, and didn't press further. They started walking down the stairs together. Suddenly one's foot slipped. She had been zoning out again, trying not to think, yet unable to stop. A sharp pain through her ankle, making her stumble forward. Sia reacted immediately, grabbing her arm, pulling her back before she could fall. "Hey, careful!" The pain, making it hard for Wine to stand properly. "Are you okay?" Sia asked. Wine nodded again. "I'm fine. Maybe I just sprained it." Sia helped her to sit on the nearby bench. "You really should be more careful, Wine. I know this time is hard for you, but you don't have to push yourself like this." Wine didn't respond. She only nodded quietly. She looked down at her ankle and noticed how red it had become. "Should we go to the doctor?" Sia asked. Wine shook her head immediately. "No, no, it's not needed. I'm going home anyway. I'll take care of it there. Don't worry." She stood up slowly, forcing a small smile. "See you." Sia still looked unconvinced, but she nodded as she watched Wine walk away, stumbling slightly as she made her way out of the college. It was already night. As Jungkook entered the dining area, his eyes fell on Azuma. She straightened immediately and asked, "Should I serve dinner now, sir?" Jungkook nodded and took his seat. After a brief pause, he asked, "Did she eat?" Azuma shook her head slowly. "No, sir. I just call her. She will be here soon." Jungkook nodded again, saying nothing more. After a few moments later, Wine walked in. Her steps were unsteady, a slight stumble in her walk. Jungkook looked up and immediately frowned. She was clearly trying to walk normally, but it was obvious she was struggling. "What happened to your leg?" he asked, his voice cold enough to make one stop in her track. She looked at him with a nervous gaze, unsure what to say. Before she could say anything, Azuma spoke gently, trying to ease the tension. "Actually, she tripped at college, sir. That's why she has a small pain in her leg." Wan slowly sat down across from Jungkook, keeping her eyes fixed on her plate. Embarrassment washed over her, her shoulders slightly hunched. Jungkook didn't look away. He watched silently. How quietly she ate. How she never lifted her gaze. How pale she looked compared to the other day before. Something tightened in his chest, an unfamiliar edge settling there without his permission. Almost immediately he looked away. He didn't say another word, not a single one. Both of them silently eating their dinner quietly.